So, the trailer for Cruella came out a few weeks ago, and it definitely looks like a movie. Who the movie's for, I don't know. I mean, I get that Disney's so out of ideas that they're reduced to reimagining their glory days, but still, who watches 101 Dalmatians and thinks to themselves, you know what, I reckon this lady, the one who wants to skin a bunch of puppies, needs a sympathetic backstory.
I only wish to have a coat made out of puppies!
Now, don't get me wrong, Emma Stone is a phenomenal actress and I'm sure she's going to do a great job with the material. And I suppose this wouldn't exactly be the first time that people ended up wanting to watch a period piece with a sympathetic look at an iconic villain who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks while being tortured by an apathetic society before reinventing themselves as a colourful megalomaniac. So, you know, maybe this could actually be okay, just so long as they remember that she is a villain, that the final destination of her journey is her becoming a villain. Anyway, the trailer got me all nostalgic and I decided to watch 101 Dalmatians, both the 1961 animated film as well as the 1996 live-action one, and I have to say, both are amazing and they hold up really well. This in turn got me even more nostalgic. Did you know that the live-action film had a novelization and that Lucy Dahl, daughter of Roald Dahl, famed terrorizer of children, was one of the two writers that worked on it? I did, because my parents read it to me when I was small. So I tracked down a copy to check it out and I thought it'd be fun to do a video about it. So, before I get started on the book, I thought I should do a quick bit on my thoughts of it just as a film. In short, it's wonderful. The three human leads, Glenn Close, Jeff Daniels and Jolie Richardson, are all great in their roles. Close was clearly having a ball hemming it up as Cruella, and the script gives her a bit more personality than her animated counterpart. Also, Daniels and Richardson have amazing chemistry together. Every scene they share is endearing, and even a cynical man like myself will buy at least a little their first date engagement. I mean, it's adorable! I also really like Daniel's performance as Roger. I mean, these days I'm more used to him playing a more harsh type of character like he does in The Martian or Looper, but he commits 100% here to being a guy with a romantic side that gets nervous when his dog has puppies. It's sweet. I mean, really, my only problem is that due to not having the animals speak like their animated counterparts, the film loses a bit of momentum in the third act. There's a lot of shots of dogs barking at one another, but it doesn't really mean all that much, and it's clear that the movie is banking on you having seen the animated film. The end of the movie is really only saved by the Home Alone-inspired slapstick that befalls the villains, and to be fair, Close, alongside with Hugh Laurie and Mark Williams as Jasper and Horace respectively, are all really entertaining in these scenes. Also, the film never really explains how Mr. and Mrs. Dealey can afford that house despite Nanny insisting that they're on a budget. I mean, maybe Anita comes from money? It clearly wasn't Roger who's paying for it, judging by his lack of business success. So, all in all, it's a fun film that's bolstered by a terrific cast. How about the book? The book, adapted by Anne Mazer and Lucy Dahl, has a really fun format. Mazer, writer of dozens of children's books, writes the standard adaptation sections. Dahl, on the other hand, writes her sections from the point of view of Pongo, the male Dalmatian. The text for these sections is bolder, larger, sometimes more colourful, and is often accompanied by hand-drawn illustrations that match the style of the 1961 film. And I have to say, both writers were perfect for their sections. Dozer's writing is all family-friendly, while still having a couple of jokes for the adults that read the books to their kids to enjoy. Roger, for example, is a tad snarkier on page than he is on screen. Roger wheeled his bike towards home. "You could have killed me, Pongo," he said sternly. "You risked losing your master for a brief frolic with a female?" Pongo hung his head. "Fools aren't born, Pongo," he lectured. "Pretty girls make them in their spare time." Dahl, however, goes all in on writing Pongo's sections as childishly and gleeful as possible. I mean, look at a playful dog and imagine what it thinks when it runs around. Odds are you thought of something that was similar to Dahl's writing style. Pongo's train of thought darts all over the place, never holding on to one idea for too long, and he's completely oblivious to the fact that dogs are not, in fact, the ones running the show. "The day that Purdy and I were married was the most wonderful day of my life. Roger and Anita had a lovely service for us in a church. They took advantage of our ceremony and exchanged marriage vows at the same time." The two styles complement one another really well, and it's quite fun to see the same events from both human and canine perspectives. Now, this is a pretty thin book, but they managed to include some sections that were not in the film, and some of it did make me pause for a bit, as it's very obvious why they were not in the film. While in the film, Cruella receives a pelt that comes from a white tiger in the London Zoo, the book actually opens with a henchman, Mr. Skinner, breaking into the tiger's enclosure, shooting it, skinning it, all on page. While the language is never graphic, it's still a rather macabre scene and would definitely make for a fun conversation with the kids. Another change really shifts the way you look at Cruella's hired goons, Horace and Jasper. While in the film they serve as comic relief, the book transforms them into essentially her slaves that she keeps in a perpetual state of poverty. They live in what is explicitly described multiple times as a hovel, and she regularly shortchanges them for the most minor of infractions. It makes them considerably more pitiable, and you can't help but feel sorry for them, as the writing makes it crystal clear that they just don't know how to escape this life that they're trapped in. The last major change in the book is the characterization of Cruella de Vil herself. Opposed to Close's hammy over-the-top performance that leaves no section of the scenery unchewed, the Cruella of this book is colder, and I can't remember a single instance of her even raising her voice, let alone screaming. And I think this is for the best, as I can't imagine any written prose being able to do justice to Close's incomparable performance. It also increases the discomfort factor that the other characters feel when around her, as it's not always immediately clear when she's angry. Now, this isn't the only change that they make to her. While some people have interpreted Cruella's interest in Anita as being more romantic than professional, the book clearly doesn't like the idea of subtext and just straight up confirms it. There's an extension of her first scene with Anita where Cruella asks Anita to dinner to discuss the new coat they're working on, and is incredulous when Anita says that she couldn't bear to leave her dog alone for that long. Later, she furiously cries, "How could she do this to me?" when she learns that Anita married Roger, and, after having her offer of buying the puppies refused, she angrily leaves with this reply. As she stomped from the room, Cruella turned to Roger. Her eyes glittered with a cold malice. "Remember, I had her first." Can't imagine why they cut that exchange for the film. One aspect of the film that's drastically improved in the new medium is the aforementioned third act. As half the book is from the perspective of Pongo, it's always crystal clear what the animals are planning. There's also a fun little bit when it dawns on Pongo that there are more than 15 puppies that he and Purdy had been searching for. While obviously the third act slapstick doesn't really translate well to prose, the story doesn't lose all that much, as it replaces these scenes, showing how tired Pongo and Purdy are and how hard they've had to fight to rescue the puppies. So, all in all, keeping in mind that I'm definitely not the target audience for this, I have to say that I thought 101 Dalmatians was quite a bit of fun, and I would happily give it a score of 4 Cruella de Vils. It was actually so good that I could easily see myself reading it to my kids, if and when I have them. Slowly, Roger unwrapped the towel to reveal a tiny, alert puppy with 2 black ears and a black circle under one eye. Roger rose with the puppy clutched in his arms. 15, he called! We have 15 puppies! Nanny rushed out from the kitchen. Mercy, mercy! She took the puppy from Roger. We're naming this one Lucky.